The lawyer didn't even look at me when he said the words. And the remainder of the estate, including the family home, all investment accounts, and personal property shall pass to Michael James and Lily Rose in equal shares. Silence. No one gasped. No one looked surprised, not even my siblings. Lily smiled. Michael tapped his pen against the armrest, like he'd already spent the money in his head. My father just sipped his coffee. No tremor in his hand. No hesitation. I sat still. Didn't flinch, didn't speak. I refused to give them the satisfaction. But something in my chest folded in on itself. I opened my mouth, just slightly, then closed it. Maybe I misheard. Maybe he wasn't done. Maybe I was in a different version of the will. But then came the worst part. The lawyer folded the document and looked up. That concludes the reading. No one moved. My father cleared his throat and stood. Well, she always said you didn't need anything, Claire. You've made your own way. You're independent. Like that was a compliment. Like that was supposed to explain away the fact that my name was never even mentioned in the document. No necklace. No letter. Not even a recipe card or a scarf. It wasn't just about the money. It was about being erased. I stood up slowly. My chair scraped against the tile like an accusation. I nodded, not to them but to myself, and walked out of the room. I made it to my car before the first tear rolled down my cheek. I don't know why I went to the funeral. Maybe I still thought there would be a moment, a crack in someone's voice, a gesture, a look, some sign that I wasn't invisible. But there were only flowers, lilies, the kind Mom hated because they made her sneeze. Her photo on the altar looked too polished, too posed. Not the woman who used to wear slippers all day and eat peanut butter from the jar when she thought no one was looking. The priest said all the right things. My siblings nodded on cue. Michael even managed to tear up. He was always good at performance. I stood off to the side. Not family, not guest. Just a placeholder. The last time I saw Mom, she held my hand and said, "You're the strong one, Claire. You always land on your feet." I thought she meant it with love. Now I wonder if she meant it as an apology. Back then, I believed that being strong meant being chosen, being seen. I didn't realize it could also be an excuse for people to give you nothing and feel good about it. I was the one who moved out at 19, got a job, paid rent, went to night school. I never asked for help, not because I didn't need it, but because I knew it wouldn't come. Michael crashed his car in college. Dad bought him a new one. Lily dropped out of 3 programs before finding one that fit. Mom paid her rent the whole time. I got promoted and they called me intense. I bought my first condo and they said I was lucky. I didn't bring anyone home for the holidays because I was too tired of hearing, "You're intimidating to men, Claire." They loved calling me independent. It was their way of saying, "We don't have to take care of you." We never planned to. After the will reading, I went back to my apartment. The walls felt tighter than usual. I opened a bottle of wine, didn't bother with a glass. Just curled up on the couch in the clothes I wore to the funeral. The lawyer's words echoed over and over. In equal shares, except me, the firstborn. The one who stayed with Mom during her chemo treatments. The one who cleaned the blood off the bathroom tiles when she fell. They weren't there. I was. But maybe I didn't cry loud enough. Maybe I didn't post enough hospital selfies. Maybe I didn't ask for anything, so they assumed I wanted nothing. By 2 a.m., the bottle was empty. I sat staring at a framed photo on my bookshelf, me and Mom at the beach. I was 11. She was laughing, one hand holding her floppy hat, the other tugging me into the waves. She looked alive. Like she had fight in her. Not like the woman in that coffin, dressed in a blouse she never would have picked. I whispered into the silence, "Did you really want this, Mom?" And something about that question stuck in the air like smoke. Because the woman in that photo, she wouldn't have done this. She wouldn't have left me nothing, would she? They never said it to my face, not directly anyway. But I've come to realize the most cutting things are always said when you're not in the room. When your absence makes it easier for them to reshape your story into something more convenient for them. Growing up, I was never included, not fully. Lily had sleepovers, mall trips, spa weekends. She and Mom would gush over nail polish colors and talk for hours about boys or bridal magazines. I'd walk in and it would go quiet. If I asked what they were planning, I get a tight smile. Just girl things. Lily would say I was a girl. I just didn't fit the mold they liked. Michael was the prince. The only boy. If he left dishes in the sink, it was, he's so busy. If I asked him to help, I was nagging. If he failed a class, Dad blamed the professor. When I got straight A's, I was obsessed with perfection. It started early, this rewriting of who I was. By the time I was in high school, I had learned to keep my victories quiet. Every time I spoke up, someone rolled their eyes. When I got my first promotion at 24, I was ecstatic. I came home for Christmas, bursting to share the news. I'm officially a senior consultant, I told them. It's a big step. Bigger clients, more responsibility. Lily didn't even look up from her phone. Wow, fancy title. Michael just smirked. You always were the bossy one. I laughed, but it stuck in my throat. Later that night, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. She thinks she's better than us now, Lily whispered. She always did, Michael replied. And my mom, didn't say a word. Still, I kept trying, for years. I invited them to my apartment, cooked for them, sent birthday gifts, even when I got nothing in return. When I graduated college, the first in our family to do it without financial help, Mom told me, "You didn't need anyone, Claire. You're not like the others." At the time, it felt like a compliment. Now I see it for what it was, the beginning of my disqualification. That line became her excuse, their excuse. For leaving me out of trips, out of photos, out of the will. Michael got help with his down payment. Lily's wedding was paid for in full, including a honeymoon in Italy. When I asked for a cosign on a student loan once, just to boost my rate, Dad looked at me like I'd asked to borrow an organ. "You've always been independent," he said. "You'll figure it out." So I did. I worked 2 jobs. I walked to save on gas. I bought a used car that stalled every other Tuesday. I taught myself how to patch drywall and fix plumbing because I couldn't afford a handyman. Every struggle I overcame became proof, in their eyes, that I didn't need them. They turned my resilience into a reason to exclude me. It's the way they talked about me, like I was another species.
Claire doesn't like parties. Claire's too busy for this kind of thing. Claire
Would rather be alone. I never said any of those things. But it was easier to label me as distant than to admit they never included me. Even Mom joined in sometimes. "She's just different," she'd say with a tight smile when someone asked why I wasn't at the family barbecue. "You know, Claire, she's always doing her own thing. But I wasn't. I was home, waiting, wondering why I hadn't been invited." Looking back, I don't know what hurts more, that they excluded me, or that they genuinely seemed to believe I liked it that way, that they mistook silence for preference, that they turned my ability to survive into a reason to deny me love. Even the small things. When Mom fell ill, it was me she called to drive her to chemo. It was me who sat there during infusions, who kept her awake when she wanted to sleep through the pain. But when family talked about who was always there, it was Lily they praised, just because she posted a picture holding Mom's hand for 10 minutes. I think the worst part was believing them for so long. Believing that I was just naturally different. Believing that I didn't need what they did. That I was strong enough to live without softness, without support, without a place at the table. But the truth is, I did want it. I just got tired of begging for scraps of warmth from people who measured love in dependency. After the funeral, the house felt like a museum of things that never belonged to me. The attic still smelled like cedar and lemon. The bedroom was untouched, her perfume bottle still half full. No one wanted her old things. Lily said it made her too emotional. Michael didn't even offer to help. So I came back quietly to gather a few things. A photo, a scarf. Something that proved I hadn't imagined the woman who once braided my hair and sang to me when I had fevers. That's when I saw it, in her vanity behind a cracked mirror panel, a locked drawer. One I had never noticed before. The key wasn't hidden. It was taped beneath the drawer, obvious, almost lazy, like she wanted it to be found. My fingers trembled as I turned it. The lock gave with a soft click and the drawer slid open. Inside was a mess of scarves, an old bottle of Chanel No. 5, a hairbrush with strands of silver still caught in the bristles. And beneath it all, a cream-colored envelope. It was yellowed slightly at the edges. My name was written in ink, her handwriting, unmistakable. Loopy, careful, full of grace. Claire, no, dear, no date on the front. Just my name, like she knew I'd find it when I needed it the most. I sat on the edge of her bed, legs folded beneath me, and opened it with the care of someone unwrapping a wound. If you're reading this, they didn't do what I asked. That was the first line. No preamble, no fluff, just that. I didn't breathe, my eyes scanned faster than I could process. She wrote about the meetings with the lawyer. How she wanted everything split evenly, not just because it was fair, but because it was right. You worked harder than any of them, Claire. You never complained, you never expected anything. But I saw everything you carried. I clutched the pages like they could disappear. She mentioned a necklace, a small gold one with a sapphire in the center. She wore it on every birthday, every graduation, every major moment of my life. I remembered playing with it as a child, the way it shimmered in the sun. It's yours, it always was. I told them to give it to you, no matter what. My chest tightened. Then came the shift. But things changed after your father insisted on reviewing the documents. He said it would be cleaner to leave the estate in his hands and he would distribute it as I wished. I should have known better. He never liked that you saw through him, and then you were always too honest for him. That line broke me. I didn't cry because of what I lost. I cried because she knew what he would do. She knew what they all would do. And still, she left the letter instead of the fight. I reread it 3 times. Each word chipped away at the numbness I'd been carrying since the funeral. She hadn't forgotten me. She hadn't meant to erase me. She had been overruled, outmaneuvered, silenced in death by the same man who'd spent a lifetime controlling her choices. Suddenly, everything made sense. The odd tone in her voice when we talked about her will. How she brushed it off when I asked if everything was settled. How she changed the subject. Offered tea, avoided eye contact. She was trying to protect me from the truth. Or maybe herself from the guilt of knowing it would happen and doing nothing. I held the letter to my chest and sobbed. The kind of sob that feels like it starts in your bones. I wasn't crying for the money, or even the necklace. I was crying for the years I deconvinced myself that being left out meant I didn't matter. That being strong meant being expendable. That maybe, just maybe, I was the problem. But this letter? It was her apology, her confession, her buried protest. And it was the only thing she left behind that was truly mine. When I finally stood, my knees ached. The sun had shifted, and the room was awash in pale light. Dust danced in the air. I walked to her vanity and opened the top drawer. The necklace was there, tucked in a small velvet box beneath some old lipstick tubes. I lifted it gently and clasped it around my neck. It was lighter than I remembered. Or maybe I was stronger now. I looked at myself in her mirror, not polished. Not perfect, but present. And then a thought rose, sharp and clear. He knew, he read this letter, or at least he suspected. And he buried it, just like he buried her wishes. I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and slid it into my coat pocket. It was time for someone else to read it. The lawyer blinked when I handed him the envelope. He recognized the handwriting instantly. His mouth tightened. I didn't say anything for a long moment. Just watched him as he slid the letter out and read the first few lines. His fingers twitched slightly. He folded again, carefully, too carefully. I see, he murmured, like we were talking about the weather and not the betrayal of a dying woman's last wishes. So? I asked. He sighed, leaning back. Your mother did request amendments. Informally, she had mentioned wanting to revise the trust, to divide the estate equally among all 3 children. He glanced at me over his glasses. But, he said, shifting, your father was the appointed executor. He brought in new documentation 3 weeks before her death. Legally, those superseded her earlier intentions. And the letter? I asked. You knew? His voice dropped. I didn't see this letter until now, but I didn't believe him. The timing was too clean, the silence too rehearsed. And there's nothing I can do? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. He rubbed his chin. You could contest it, of course. But it would mean opening probate, hiring your own attorney, launching a formal inquiry. And it would be costly, time-consuming, painful. He let that last word hang in the air like he was doing me a favor. I stood slowly, the letter now back in my coat pocket. Painful, I repeated. Not as painful as being erased. I drove straight to my father's house. The gate still creaked the same way it had since I was 15. The porch smelled like stale coffee and wet wood. I let myself in. I knew the code. He was already at the table, reading the paper like nothing in the world had ever surprised him. Claire, he said. You could have called. I didn't want to give you time to prepare your excuses, I said, taking the seat across from him. He poured me tea like we were about to discuss the weather. I found Mom's letter, I said flatly. He didn't blink. I assumed you might. She asked for the estate to be split evenly. She asked for you to honor her word. He stirred sugar into his cup. Your mother was sentimental. She didn't understand how finances work. I had to make practical decisions. That's what she asked me to do in the end. No, I said, my voice hardening. She asked you to respect her. And you made sure no one did. He looked up at me, calm, smug, infuriatingly rational. You're not a child, Claire. You have a good job. You're doing well. You didn't need anything. I laughed, bitter, sharp. But I was her daughter. And you made sure that didn't matter, he shrugged. I did what was best for the family. No, I said. You did what was best for your ego. He didn't respond. He just went back to his paper like I hadn't spoken. By the time I got back home, Lily had blocked me on every app. Michael sent a single text. This is all so unnecessary. You're making things ugly. They didn't want to talk about the letter. They didn't want to hear what Mom actually wanted. Because her truth was inconvenient. It didn't fit the narrative they all agreed on. The one where I was too independent, too cold, too different. But now I knew better. She hadn't forgotten me. She hadn't chosen them over me. She'd been overruled. And maybe, in her own quiet way, she knew I was the only one who would find the truth and carry it forward. Something shifted in me that night. I pulled out the letter again, unfolded it slowly, smoothed out the creases. I didn't need it for a court case. I didn't need it to prove anything to my siblings. They'd already made up their minds. But I needed it, as proof that my mother saw me. That she didn't forget. That I wasn't imagining the quiet love between us that no one else ever bothered to notice. I found an old frame in the back of my closet and placed the letter inside it. Hung it above my desk, not as evidence, but as permission to let go of their version of me. Permission to write my own. There were no floral arrangements, no formal speeches, no slideshow with generic background music. Just 6 chairs in my backyard, a folding table with tea and cookies, and a shoebox full of photos I'd kept hidden for years. I organized the memorial myself. Lily didn't come. Michael never responded. Dad sent a one-line email that read, "Please don't drag this out," but my neighbors came. 2 of Mom's old friends from her quilting circle came. Even my college roommate drove 2 hours to sit quietly by my side. It wasn't the memorial she got, with catered food and white lilac glass vases. It was the one she deserved. It was real. I stood in front of them with a copy of the letter folded in my pocket. My hands trembled slightly, but not from nerves. This was something else. It was the weight of grief finally shifting, making space for something lighter. I started with the stories no one else remembered. How Mom used to hum when she washed dishes, always out of tune. How she never corrected my homework but left notes in the margins. This word glows. I love how your mind works. How during thunderstorms, she'd brush my hair for what felt like hours. Even though I was too old for it, whispering, "You're safe, you're smart. You're mine." I told them about the peanut butter crackers she used to sneak into my lunch bag on test days. About the way she always remembered the name of my favorite teacher, even when she could barely hold a fork. I told them about the necklace, the one I was wearing now, and how it sparkled when she laughed. It was quiet, unscripted, honest, and then when I was ready, I pulled out the letter. "I want to read something," I said, unfolding it gently. "It's the last thing she ever wrote to me." I found it after the funeral, tucked away in her vanity. It wasn't part of the official will, but in every way that matters, it was her will. I paused. Then read the final paragraph, the one I hadn't dared to say out loud until now. I hope you always know, I watched everything you built, and I was so proud. I didn't say it enough. Not because I didn't feel it, but because I thought you didn't need to hear it. But I was wrong. You needed it. And I should have told you. So here it is. I saw you, I loved you. And you were never too much. I choked on that last line. But I didn't cry from pain. I cried from release. All those years spent wondering if I de-imagined her love, if I de-earned it, or if it had slipped away when I decided to live on my own terms, all of that collapsed in that moment, because I finally had the answer. She did love me. And she had seen me. After everyone left, I sat alone at the table. The sun was low, the breeze soft. I looked around at the little scraps of memory laid out like offerings, the photos, the teacups, the framed letter that now sat beside the guest book. There was no inheritance check, no mansion, no family estate, but I had this, the truth, her truth. And it was enough. Later that night, I walked into my office and cleared a space on my desk, right beneath the lamp, next to the books she used to send me, the ones no one else ever noticed. I placed the framed letter there, not for proof, for presence. For the reminder that love, real love, doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it whispers through paper and ink and unspoken memories. But when it arrives, it stays. I didn't win. Not in the way people think of winning. But I reclaimed something no one could auction off or bury behind legal language. I reclaimed myself, and I wrote this story not to reopen old wounds, but to offer something to anyone who's ever been left out, talked over, rewritten by people who never bothered to understand them. Because what I learned is this: your worth isn't defined by what they leave you. It's defined by what you carry forward and what you refuse to let die with silence. If you've ever felt erased by your own family, just know this: your worth isn't written in their will. It's in your story. Subscribe to my channel for more stories like this.